Hey guys, my name is Loveless, and we are back with Quirk Knife, which I completely forgot to say the name of the story, but I'm saying it now. I'll make sure to still put whatever chapter that I'm reading into the description below, and so you can find it and you can follow along if you want to do that read along type thing. So, and let's get straight into it. It hasn't been long. The sun's gone down, the bright moons cast a cold shadow over the city, the only source of yellow light being from the lamp posts that line the street, most flickering or broken. Izuku raised a finger to his cheek while wandering aimlessly, meeting only dry skin peppering in freckles. Has he not cried yet? But he always cries. He's cried when someone says good morning to him, yet here he is gallivanting around after his mom got crushed beneath their own home. Totally makes sense. What comes next? Is he supposed to go find someone for help? Who would ever help a useless Deku like him? Izuku didn't even want to think about how the foster system would treat a quirkless kid like himself. He would honestly rather take his chances with the rats on the streets. At least they wouldn't bully him. No, Izuku was too tired to think. He pushed everything out of his head, mind going blank and letting his legs carry him nowhere specific. Izuku wasn't trying to think of anything until his foot sunk into the ground, a different texture than the pavement and the sidewalk that he's been walking on. He blinked a few times with a cold expression and kicked the new substance with his toe of his red sneakers. It was sand? It was then Izuku picked up on the distant sound of small waves crashing on the shore and sinking away over and over again. The grimy flat stone on his left was some letters carved into it. It was difficult to read without proper light, but the moon seemed to be enough as Izuku approached the rocks, running his finger along the cracks. Dagaha Beach, he murmured under his breath when he read the title out loud, turning around to get a good look at the area. To put it nicely, it was shitty. Like, instead of a sandy beach, it was a lot more of a junky beach. Literally. The entire shore was covered in a variety of forgotten and unwanted objects, and Izuku carefully approached the water, looking at his reflection. It seems that he fit right in. All the fucking extras were louder than usual today. It pissed Katsuki off. Don't touch me! He spat. What is his name again? Doesn't matter. Boulders clapped him on the back with a stupid smile, blabbering on about something Katsuki couldn't bother to care about. Did you hear what I said? Katsuki groaned and kicked his feet up on the desk. What? All Might saved a bunch of lives yesterday. Okay, as much as Katsuki would rather rip his ears out and shove it down the extra's throat to get out of listening to another word this extra had to say, he did like All Might. Send me the article then. Katsuki tapped through his phone with a scowl and opened up the newest news report. The image of nothing but rubble and dust taking up his screen. All Might smiling brightly with hands on his hips. Katsuki couldn't help but scoff, knowing that one day he would be the new All Might, the new number one hero. He skimmed through the text with a bored expression, but his thumb froze when the street name was mentioned. Red eyes slowly moving over the desk not too far behind him, and his breath hitched when it was empty. Deku was never late. It was just the nerd he was. Hey! He shouted louder than necessary towards his name? Boulders. Yeah, Boulders. Doesn't say anything about deaths. The moronic dumbass shrugged. I don't know, man. It's pretty fresh. If anyone died, it's probably still like a secret or whatever. Doubt anyone died if All Might was there, though. Right, All Might was there. Useless Deku is probably just caught up chasing another fight and taking hero notes. Stuck chasing that ridiculous unrealistic dream. The bell rang and the class quieted down while the teacher began talking. Katsuki shooting one last desk to the empty desk before looking up to the board. Where is he again? Why is there sand up his... Oh, Dagaha Beach. Izuku rubbed his eyes and sat up, his back painfully stiff and sore. Had he fallen asleep that easily? It takes him usually hours to knock himself out. Suddenly, he panicked and scrambled for his phone. Mom would be so worried that he ran off. Oh God, he was so dead. Izuku opened the call app, but froze, staring at the contacts. Right, no one's gonna answer. School had already started, and although he was in his uniform, Izuku had no current interest in being ridiculed, bullied, and abused. He stood up and shook the sand from his hair, noticing how long it's gotten without a proper haircut. Not that Mom ever offered. He was always too busy writing notes and studying. Ha! See, it's funny because all the time that he spent on those notes were gone, buried under the remains of his home. It was all for nothing. Izuku stumbled over to the nearest pile of the trash and gave it a sharp kick for no apparent reason, fighting the urge to just scream at the top of his lungs. He pushed his green hair from his eyes and looking down at the trash, then along the entire coastline. How long would it take to clean all this? He muttered underneath his breath. Well, the beach doesn't seem to be quite large. How long would it take to completely clean depends on several factors. The overall weight of mass of the trash, how many people participated, even the weather would be a factor because it would make clearing more difficult. The resources they have, like machines and dumpster trucks. Izuku pinched the bottom of his lip as he mumbled on, spewing all his thoughts as they came. I guess there's only one way to find out, he said softly and picking up a old soup can. It's something to do. No one would stop talking about how Deku wasn't at school today. Most joked about maybe he finally took the leap of faith or pretending to pray that he would not return. Katsuki wouldn't lie. In any other circumstances, he would have been the one instigating the jokes and insults. But something just felt off. The nerd never, ever missed school. He could be dying and that Deku would show up because he didn't want to miss anything. Katsuki waved the extras away and stomped home. Hands stuffed in his pockets, the signature scowl on his face. Surely Deku was fine. All Might saves everyone, so tomorrow Deku would be back and he would gush about how he met the symbol of peace, and then Katsuki would try to explode him to the sun. Just like any other day. He slammed the door shut and kicked his shoes off, ready to ignore the old hag's scowl for not putting his shoes away properly. Yet the noises never came. Instead, muffled cries and whispers echoed from the kitchen. It sounded like both of his old people. Hey, old hag! He shouted and tossed his bag by the stairs. Arriving in the kitchen to see Mitsuki crouched over her phone and Matsuri rubbing her back, his own tears falling down onto her sweater. Okay, yes, thank you, Mitsuki said in a strange voice. It slowly put the phone down. Her hands then gripped onto the edge of the kitchen counter until her knuckles turned white. Oi, Katsuki said in a deflated tone. Don't ignore me, Kats. Mitsuki turned with red puffy eyes. Oh, I didn't hear you come in. What's with the fucking crying festival in here? Matsuri shook his head. Not now, Katsuki. Katsuki looked between his parents with his eyebrows pinched together, heat beginning to swell in his palms. Would you just tell me what the fuck's going on? Matsuri wiped his eyes. Let's sit down. Katsuki would have sworn he misheard. Inko? Auntie Inko? I don't understand, he mumbled. All Might was there. Mitsuki still couldn't speak, and Matsuri did his best to handle the situation for the two of them. I'm sure the heroes did their best, son, but they're humans too. They have limits. Katsuki felt strange at the loss of words of what he was supposed to say. His parents didn't know what he had been doing to Inko's son. In fact, he doubted Auntie Inko even knew herself because she would have said something. Katsk, Mitsuki finally croaked, her chin tucked against her chest. How's Izuku? Is he doing alright? Oh no. Deku wasn't at school today. Tears began to flow from Mitsuki's eyes once again. Oh, poor Izuku. We should have done something. It's not like he has a dad or any other family, she mumbled off. Katsuki paused to clear his throat. Do you know where he is? Mitsuki shook her head. I haven't heard any... Oh dear. That's a good point. Where would Izuku be if he wasn't at school? He doesn't have any other family members. Matsuru tapped his chin in thought. Perhaps he went to stay with a friend? They would have informed us if he was at the hospital with an injury. Mitsuki nodded. Yeah, makes sense. No, the fuck it didn't. That little shit didn't have any friends. Katsuki clenched his teeth together and huffed. I have homework to do. He stood up with the sound of the chair scraping ominously against the hardwood, and he turned, his father catching his wrist before he can escape. You can talk to us if you need to, Katsuki. You know that, right? Katsuki kept his hands down. Whatever. And pulled his wrist back, slinking quietly to his room. Izuku's hand stung. He had cut himself on the trash several times by accident, yet he couldn't find himself to be upset with the injuries. It was better than feeling nothing. He used the gym shirts in his bag and tore the fabric up, wrapping it around his hands to prevent any further injuries or dirtying the wound. Not that he would have needed that shirt anytime soon. He didn't get through much, mainly trying to collect the smaller pieces of garbage like bottle caps and broken glasses. Like bottle caps, broken glass, papers, and pieces of metal, simply tossing them into the nearest garbage cans up the sidewalk. Izuku realized that the first main problem he ran into was actually disposing of the junk. He would need a garbage bags or some sort of object to transport everything. He sat by the water again and wrote ideas in his old notebook that he'd forgotten in the bottom of his school bag that he discovered. He'd written everything from wheelbarrows to cardboard boxes, trying to find the best method of transport. Izuku tucked the book away and cracked his back, his stomach suddenly growling loudly. Oh, he said blankly. I think I'm hungry. Yeah, no shit, it's been several hours since you've consumed anything. Izuku shifted through the change he had in his pants pocket, finding just enough to scrap a snack from a nearby convenience store. Beginning his walk, he grabbed one last handful of trash and disposed of it. Walking to the store just around the corner store he recalled passing yesterday. Hopefully he has enough. Dying of starvation or dehydration would be a lame way to go. The store wasn't busy, and Izuku looked around, grabbing a cheap bag of chips, 2 bottles of water, and a granola bar. Yummy! Dinner. Is that all? The older man at the cash register smiled, and Izuku nodded, carefully placing the coins into the man's hand. He smiled genuinely. How was school today? I think my grandson has the same uniform as you. Izuku looked down at the logo on his shirt and then back up. Oh, it was okay. The man hummed and returned very few coins that Izuku knew that he would have to spend wisely until he found a way to get more cash. That was yet another concern he would have to worry about. Have a good day, he said all in one breath. The gentleman returned with a nod and Izuku left, heading back to the beach. Guess he's sleeping there again tonight. He looked upwards and groaned when he saw a gray shading into the clouds. He hadn't even considered the possibility of rain. Izuku forced a few chips down and a couple sips of water. Already back to the beach and his bag set against the stone. He spent a few more minutes grumbling and kicking the trash around until he picked up a black handle and threw it as hard as he can towards a worn-down pickup truck, the blade of the knife piercing through the metal door. Izuku breathed out heavily, looking down towards his hand wrapped in fabric. That was, he breathed, fun. It was fun. He quickly pulled the knife out of the door and took a few steps back, throwing it again as hard as he could. Except this time the knife went way off target, the handle colliding with the fridge a few feet away. Shit! Izuku only again retrieved the knife and threw it at the car. This time it just nicked the metal part of the center of the tire, the blade deflecting at an odd angle and skidding into the sand. His soft laugh echoed over the sound of the lapping waves, staring at the shine. Knife throwing was all mathematics and strategic planning, right? Trajectory, speed, blah, blah, blah. Izuku liked this stuff, and he had a new mission. Learn to hit any target. Would you shut up? Shoto groaned as the villain writhed in his hole, going on whatever rights he had. What you got there, Racer? Sugachi glanced up from his desk at the police station, eyeing the thin, bald villain. Assault and robbery. He wasn't very good at it, Shota deadpanned, forcing the villain into a temporary cell and locking the door. It was like he wasn't even trying, didn't even wear a mask. Sugachi snorted. Just makes your job easier. Don't go complaining. Shota just grumbled an incoherent sentence in response, flopping down in the empty chair next to Sugachi. Anything detective-worthy? Just dealing with a few paperworks from yesterday. Oh yeah, several apartment buildings came down, right? Hazachi was on the scene along with All Might. Shota watched Sugachi flip through the countless papers as he scribbled down a few things. We have one death, but can't find any files on the victim. Shoto frowned, recalling the woman with green hair and the way that Hazachi reacted to the photo at first glance. His husband seemed to have collected something, but waved it off as a coincidence without sharing anything. What do you mean? Can't you just go off a facial scan? Sugachi handed the file to Shoto. A friend of a victim was located where we were able to get some information. Eiko Midoriya, early 40s, single mother of one. Shoto inhaled sharply at that. Where's the kid? I'm sure he's with a friend, yet we haven't been able to locate the boy. But he's a teenager, 14 to be exact, so he should come around soon. And a father? Sugachi took a file back and shook his head. Out of the picture. Has been for quite some time. The Midoriyas have no other known family, and I can't find anything about her in the system, which is strange. Shota hummed and buried his nose into the capture starve. Still caught up with the recently orphaned child, why would he not come for help? Of course, staying with a friend is the most likely situation, but wouldn't the kid still want to figure out what happens next? Maybe the kid was afraid to be put in the foster care. Shota could understand that. I'll keep an eye out for him. Does the kid have a name? Tsugachi hummed in confirmation and called over his shoulder as Shota left. Izuku. Deku wasn't at school the next day, and Katsuki was only growing more, well, not concerned because it's not like he cares about the nerd, but annoyed. His mom died. Why would he just disappear? Why wouldn't the teacher said or done something? Surely they knew Deku's address and would be worried about his safety. Maybe they already done something behind the scenes as to not worry his friends, if Deku had any. The suicide jokes continued endlessly. All the kids laughed, and not even considering the fact that Deku, the useless Deku, might have actually done it. If he did it, whose fault would that be? Not Katsuki's, right? Right? Sweat collected on Katsuki's brow during math class as he stared blankly at the quiz, unable to muster enough concentration to pick up his pencil. His mind wouldn't focus on the task at hand because if Deku, does that mean, in a way, Katsuki killed him? No, that's not how it works. The nerd would have done it on his own. It would have been completely his own fault, no one else's. It would be his own fault for being so weak and useless. The bell rang and Katsuki just threw his unfinished quiz at the teacher, stomping out and getting home faster than he usually did. "Mom!" he shouted, swinging the door shut with a small explosion from his hand. Mitsuki seemed tired and she didn't yell back. "Yes?" Katsuki slammed his hands down on the kitchen table where she sat at and bit the inside of his cheek as hard as he could. "Deku doesn't have friends." Mitsuki frowned for a moment. "Hun, what?" "I'm saying," Katsuki huffed and clicked his tongue, "he wouldn't have been staying anywhere else. He doesn't have anyone that would take him in." Matsuri came in from the television room and folded the recent newspaper he was reading, tilting his head in confusion as well. "Son, what are you saying?" Katsuki drew up a slow breath and closed his eyes, speaking in the most quietest tone he has ever remembered using. "We need to file a missing persons report." So that's the end of that chapter. And if you want to see more, you know what to do at this point. Said it once.